The Mongolian plateau, in the 12th century, was a place of harsh beauty, a land of endless sky, biting wind, and fractured tribes, where survival often meant betrayal. It was here around the year 1162 that a boy named Temujin was born to a minor chieftain. His father, Yesugai, was respected, but the world he lived in was ruthless. Alliances shifted with the seasons, and when Yesugai was poisoned by rivals, Temujin's world collapsed before he was even 10 years old.
I was just a boy when they abandoned us. One day we had people, horses, food. The next day, nothing. My brothers and I, we dug roots from the ground. We learned which berries wouldn't kill you. That was my childhood.
After my husband died, the clan left us. I remember telling my children, no one is coming to save us. I told them that if we want to live, we do it ourselves. And Temujin listened more than the others.
Isolation taught Temujin something no formal lesson could, that loyalty was precious and rare. He would never forget the betrayal that followed his father's death, or the strength his mother showed in those years. While other boys were learning to hunt, Temujin was learning to lead, quietly, without ceremony, and long before anyone recognized it.
I hated them for what they did to us. But I also learned something from it.
Temujin's early bitterness didn't fade, but it hardened into resolve. He began to understand something deeper about power, not just how it was used, but how it was earned.
People follow strength, or they follow fear. If I couldn't give them fear, I'd give them something harder to ignore.
As Temujin entered his teens, he began forming ties that would shape his future. Among them was a boy named Jamukha, a noble from a more powerful clan. The two became Anda, blood brothers, a sacred bond on the steppe meant to last a lifetime. They shared meals, hunted together, made plans for the future. But behind their friendship lay two very different views of leadership.
Jamukha and I, we were close. He was clever, confident. I respected him.
To the world, they were allies, blood brothers bound by tradition. But beneath the surface, their visions for Mongolia were already beginning to diverge.
I could see how he looked down on the poorer clans. He believed blood decided everything. I didn't.
Men are the strength of our people, not your noble-born friends. You would undo centuries of tradition for a rabble.
Temujin always had this restlessness in him. He wanted to pull people in from the fringes. Horse herders, wanderers, even slaves.
To Jamukha, it wasn't just bold, it was dangerous. Temujin's vision threatened the very order their world was built on.
I used to ask him, will they follow you, really? And he'd say, if I treat them better than their lords do, they will.
While Jamukha maintained ties with the aristocratic clans, Temujin built his base from below, among the outcasts, the poor, the ambitious. He rewarded loyalty over birth, and his following began to grow. But ambition, even masked by humility, always draws attention. And not all attention is friendly.
I didn't plan to become a rival to Jamukha. I only wanted to protect my people.
In the steppe, intentions matter less than momentum, and every rising leader casts a shadow.
Jamukha was my brother, but power changes things. The moment you gain it, someone sees you as a threat.
By his mid-20s, Temujin's power was undeniable. He had built a coalition of lesser clans and outcast warriors, promising them fairness and stability in return for loyalty. But Jamukha saw it differently. To him, Temujin was a disruptor, someone who challenged the natural order of the steppe. Their friendship could not survive what came next. In 1187, Jamukha crushed Temujin at the Battle of Dalan Baljut. Hundreds of Temujin's men were captured and brutally executed, some even boiled alive. It was a message. This rebellion would not be tolerated.
He didn't kill me, but his message was obvious. Go back to your place. That was the last time I saw him as a brother.
Through persistence, diplomacy, and force, Temujin began pulling the steppe into alignment. Clan by clan, tribe by tribe, he reshaped the political landscape. Then, in 1206, it happened. The great tribes gathered on the Onan River plains for a Kurultai, a ceremonial council. For the first time in centuries, the fractured Mongol nation stood together.
They called me Genghis Khan that day. It meant universal ruler.
Once the Mongol tribes were unified, Genghis Khan turned outward. He believed stability inside the steppe required pressure beyond it. His first target was the Western Sia, a kingdom on Mongolia's southern border. They had resources, walled cities, and a history of disregarding Mongol interests. Genghis saw them not as an enemy, but as a proving ground.
Most thought we were just riders. Fast, brutal, but simple.
They saw chaos on horseback, but missed what was happening behind the charge. The Mongols were watching, learning, and getting better with every battle.
They didn't see how we studied them. How we learned from every wall we broke, every gate we forced open.
After subduing Western Xia, Genghis turned to the Jin dynasty, a much larger and wealthier power in northern China. His forces adapted quickly, using siegecraft from captured engineers and psychological warfare. Temples were spared if cities surrendered. Massacres followed if they resisted. The message was clear: resistance had a cost.
I gave them a choice. Open the gates, protect your people. But if you kill my messengers, then we are no longer talking about diplomacy.
The worst of it came during the campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire. Located in modern-day Iran and Central Asia, the Shah of Khwarezm had insulted Genghis personally, killing Mongol envoys and seizing trade caravans. It was a blunder that would lead to ruin.
I tried trade first, then a warning. He answered both with arrogance. After that, I knew words wouldn't work anymore.
The destruction of the Khwarezmian Empire wasn't just revenge, it was demonstration. Cities that had stood for centuries fell in weeks. Trade routes shifted. Other rulers paid close attention. By the mid-1220s, Genghis Khan had transformed Mongol warriors into a global force. Not just conquerors, but engineers, diplomats, administrators. His wars reshaped Eurasia's balance of power. Conquest made Genghis Khan powerful, but it was what came after that made him a ruler. With his empire growing faster than any in history, he needed more than swords to hold it together. He needed rules, justice, structure. So he created something the steppe had never seen: a unified legal code.
The law must treat all men the same, whether they ride with 10 horses or none.
The law is the same for all, and he stole from the camp, and now he answers for it.
If someone steals, they face the consequences. If they lie, the same. Even my own sons aren't above that.
He ensured safety on the roads through a courier system known as the Yam. Relay stations across thousands of miles, manned and stocked, allowing messengers to cross the empire in days instead of weeks. He also protected foreign traders and religious leaders. In his empire, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and others worshipped freely. This tolerance wasn't idealism, it was practical governance.
If a man believes in one god, or many, that is between him and the sky. As long as he follows my law, he is welcome under my rule.
Under Genghis Khan, commerce flourished. The Silk Road, long fragmented, came under a single authority. Ideas moved with goods. So did technologies, medicines, and languages. In 1209, Genghis Khan turned south. His first major campaign beyond the steppe was against the Western Xia, a Tangut kingdom in what is now northwestern China. Their cities were fortified, their armies accustomed to defending against raiders. But the Mongols weren't raiders anymore. Western Xia had underestimated them. The campaign took over a year. Genghis had no siege tradition, no engineers. But he adapted. Tangut prisoners taught the Mongols how to dam rivers, how to build siege towers. At Yinchuan, he flooded the city's outer defenses by diverting the Yellow River. Western Xia surrendered, but he didn't stop there. Next came the Jin dynasty, a far larger and more complex target, ruling northern China from the capital of Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing.
They hid behind walls and gold. But I knew, if they feared losing what they had, they could be broken without touching it.
Genghis moved fast. He split his forces into multiple columns. Some besieged cities, others ravaged the countryside, cutting supply lines, terrifying reinforcements. He turned cities into islands, isolated, surrounded, psychologically shaken.
We let them eat their own grain. Then we let them watch the smoke rise from their neighbors' gates.
In 1215, after a long siege, Zhongdu fell. Jin resistance had shattered. It was Genghis Khan's first taste of total victory against a sedentary empire, and it wouldn't be the last. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan west to the wealthy Khwarezmian Empire, covering parts of modern Iran, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. The empire was strong, rich, and prideful. But the Shah of Khwarezm, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, didn't just reject the caravan. He seized it, executed its guards, then killed Mongol envoys sent to demand justice. To the Mongols, envoys were sacred. Killing them wasn't just an insult, it was blasphemy.
I tried trade, then a warning. He laughed at both, so I stopped speaking.
The campaign that followed was like nothing the Islamic world had seen. Genghis led over 100,000 troops across the Central Asian deserts, dividing his army into multiple columns to strike fast and unexpectedly. One force stormed Otrar, another crossed the Kizilkum Desert to Bukhara. They didn't move like armies, they moved like wind. Cities like Samarkand, Nishapur, and Merv fell in weeks. Local commanders expected conventional sieges. The Mongols brought swift encirclement, traitors turned, walls breached from within. The Shah fled. His empire collapsed not in years, but in months. After the destruction of the Khwarezmian Empire, Genghis Khan did not return to the steppe. He kept moving west. Some of his forces, led by his most trusted generals Subutai and Jeb, chased the remnants of Shah Muhammad's forces into the Caucasus. There, they clashed with the Georgians, Alans, and a coalition of steppe tribes. The Mongols defeated them in a series of brutal, rapid engagements. In 1223, they crushed a Rus-Kuman alliance at the Battle of the Kalka River, a campaign of reconnaissance that gave Europe its first glimpse of Mongol warfare. But Genghis himself focused elsewhere. He turned back east to crush a rebellion in Western Shah, a kingdom he thought pacified years before. The Tangut had broken their vassalage. Genghis saw that not as treason, but as a personal betrayal.
They made themselves my allies. Then they chose to be my enemies. That choice has a price.
While his generals ravaged Persia and the Caucasus, Genghis Khan led one final campaign. It was relentless. City after city in western Xia fell. Tanguts who had once bowed to him now faced annihilation. He cut them off from their Jin allies and blockaded their supply lines. Fortresses surrendered in days. In 1227, the Tangut capital Ningxia was surrounded. By the time it fell, the Western Xia no longer existed. It was during this campaign, at the height of his power, that Genghis Khan fell ill. He died that same year.
We ended it quickly. No survivors to rise again. That was the order, and we carried it out.
Genghis Khan was no longer the vigorous warrior of old. Injuries, age, and illness were catching up with him. No records confirm how he died. Some say he fell from a horse. Others claim he succumbed to illness or was wounded in battle. What is known is this. Genghis Khan died in August 1227, in the midst of victory. He was buried in secret. His body was returned to Mongolia, escorted by a funeral caravan said to have killed anyone who saw them along the road. The burial site has never been found.
He was more than my father. He was the measure I could never quite reach. But he taught me enough to try.
Before his death, Genghis named his third son, Urjadai, as his successor. It wasn't the most obvious choice. Yochi, his eldest, had fallen out of favor. Chagatai, his second son, was too volatile. Ugadai was known for balance, calm, thoughtful, a ruler, not just a warrior. The empire was divided among his sons and grandsons, each given their own territory but united under the Khagan, supreme ruler. And under Ugadai, the Mongol Empire would continue to expand to Korea, to Baghdad, to Hungary and Poland. What Genghis began, his descendants carried further.
I was not building for myself. I was building for those who will ride after me.
He had started as a boy in exile, abandoned by his own clan. But he died ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen.